Welcome to our TV network, your ultimate destination for all things exciting and essential. From mouth-watering food to the latest in fashion, health, education, music, movies, and news, plus thrilling sports and breathtaking travel, our TV network brings it all to you. Tune in today and experience the best of every world, all in one place, RTV.network.
Hello and welcome to Connect Caribbean Report here on Callaloo Alliance Media, our TV network. On today's program, we are focusing on the power of cultural exchange, strengthening Caribbean unity, a tourism perspective. And with us today is Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association, Mr. Ryan Ford, joining us later in the spotlight. We welcome your comments and questions, so feel free to post them on the social platform you're watching from. I'm Jennifer Hyland, your host for this week's episode, and joining today, as well as my co-host, Ambassador Dr. Andre Thomas, CEO of Cleon Group and founder of Callaloo Alliance Media and our TV network, Anthony Weeks. Through Connect Caribbean, we are bridging the islands, uniting communities, unlocking new possibilities for the entire region. So stay tuned as we dive into the stories and innovations that are shaping the Caribbean's bright future. Remember, this is your front row seat to the next wave of regional travel, and we are covering here on Connect Caribbean Report. So we'll be right back with Ambassador Thomas and Anthony in Connect Caribbean World right after these messages.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stock futures were moving lower this morning. President Donald Trump's latest round of tariffs is now in place. Trump's latest tariffs push those imposed on China this year to as high as 104%. And now China has raised tariffs on U.S. goods to 84%. Oil today sank to a fresh 4-year low on demand concerns. It was well below $60 a barrel this morning. Another major loss for Wall Street yesterday that started with promise. Stocks jumped higher at the opening bell, but after another volatile session, punctuated by tariff remarks from the White House, the Dow finished down 320 points, the S&P 500 fell 79, the Nasdaq slid 335 points. Former Treasury Secretary Lawrence Summers warned that the U.S. is now likely headed toward a recession, with potentially 2 million Americans put out of work thanks to tariff increases. Summers spoke with Wall Street Week, predicting losses in household income of $5,000 per family or more. Gina Cervetti.
Hello and welcome to Connect Caribbean World, and I have with me our wonderful partner from the USVI, Anthony Wicks. So how are you doing, Anthony?
Ambassador, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you on Connect Caribbean World. How are you doing today?
I am doing very, very well.
Fantastic.
I hear you have a delegation.
Yeah, it's funny. It turned out we didn't plan the timing of today's topic of discussion with the actual delegation that's here in St. Croix from the DMV, Washington, Maryland, Virginia area.
Very good. Very, very, very good. Okay, well, let's really go dive into this particular subject of the tourism and travel possibilities that exists within cultural exchange. What, in your opinion, can be the reality that Connect Caribbean brings when it comes to cultural exchange across the Caribbean, but also including the USVI and the rest of the Caribbean nations?
Absolutely. I am, to say that I am absolutely just elated by just the impeccable timing of not only the show and the visitation by the delegation from Loudoun County, Virginia, better known as DC Wine Country. This is a relationship that was planted, a couple of years ago. And the reason I'm telling you this is because when you look at the two conversion of the historical perspective of the role of Caribbean people in America, we're known as Caribbean American. Caribbean people, or West Indians, have literally contributed to the foundation from us being a 13 colony to a country, from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War, in terms of just bringing all of the belief, the religion, the lifestyle, all the things that we are about as Caribbean people. We were at the genesis of the molding and shaping of the United States, because Caribbean have between, like, again, we always say there's the third border, right? The Caribbean is the third border. And so that relationship between the Caribbean and the United States had go way back in helping them to fight the Revolutionary War against Great Britain and winning that war, and obviously allying with France as well. And so we have a situation where President Biden, as I told you, for 15 years have vacated. This is his Caribbean vacation home, him and Jill. And what he did historically, when he signed into law the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill, by a stroke of a pen, he then designated St. Croix as one of the rare 62 National Heritage Area. And so we now have the benefit of now activating, and the reason why this delegation is here is what we've done is we've created a bilateral National Heritage Area. Loudoun, Virginia is a National Heritage Area because of the Underground Railroad and the movement of slaves, and St. Croix because of the Alexander Hamilton, a West Indian who born in Nevis, grew up in St. Croix, helped to create modern America. So you see where I'm going with this in terms of just the role that we played from the inception, from the genesis of who we are and our contribution as a people and our history, our heritage and culture.
Okay, excellent. Now, the other thing that I want to emphasize, because I know a bit about your story, your parents are from Nevis, aren't they?
Right. So
Yes.
while I was born, myself and my siblings, I lost my kid brother, so it's just my sister now, mother and father. Our parents are from the Eastern Caribbean. My dad was from Montserrat, and my mother was from Antigua. So,
okay, yes.
right. So they migrated, instead of going to the UK, they chose to come to the United States, but they settled in, instead of going to New York, because that's where all the family is, they decided to come to the Virgin Islands. And obviously we became part of the U.S. Virgin Islands, being born as a Virgin Islander.
Well. Now, what do you see as the possibilities for relinking families through the Connect Caribbean service?
So keep in mind that on a per annum basis, 30 million people travel from around the world every year, go to the Caribbean. Of that number, half of that 30 million people coming from around the world, half of that is from the United States. So you kind of put all of the nationality, ethnicity, and diversity of Americans. 50% of the people coming to the Caribbean every year are Americans, to include the Caribbean diaspora. Okay, so it is not unusual that once upon a time, the Virgin Islands was the gateway early on, back in the 60s and the 70s, the Virgin Islands, most Caribbean people, instead of going directly to the United States, U.S. mainland, they saw it was better because the Virgin Islands was in close proximity from the islands they came from. So it made sense for them, instead of just, migrating completely to the U.S. mainland, why not just go to a Caribbean island that was adjacent, and they're able to go back and forth, seek out economic opportunity, and be able to, take care of their family, send money back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, very interesting. Now we are now very close to implementing this groundbreaking ferry service. That would take passengers from St. Croix and take them as far as Dominica, as far as Antigua. What do you anticipate would be the level of interest in this service both ways?
Absolutely. So obviously, we know the elephant in the room. We are not, the Virgin Islands is not part of the contiguous United States.
That's
you
right.
either come here by cruise ship, or you come here by airlift, the major airlines. And so once you get here, whether you go to the U.S. Virgin Islands, you go to Puerto Rico, you now have to figure out how you're going to get to the rest of the Caribbean. In some cases, smaller markets are not able to have that direct flight. So with the launching of Connect Carib, that regional ferry network, you now create that bridge to now, once you bring people from the U.S. mainland, which include people from the Caribbean, the diaspora living in the U.S. mainland with everybody else, the Virgin Islands become an important hub where we now are able to now literally develop the market to do open skies, to have more flights coming into the St. Croix direct, and then obviously with the ferry service to be able to now give people the option to now move people and to move cargo throughout the region by virtue of the Port St. Croix Connect Carib relationship.
Okay, that's really very good. In fact, one of the things that I see is that the cultural, relational tourism is absolutely going to boom because I wonder what are the statistics of Caribbean people that really want to travel. We actually looked at a study done by the World Bank. And the World Bank actually did an assessment, and they spoke to travel agents across the entire Caribbean. Everyone who was a who's who within the travel industry, actually, they had a conversation with. And they were able to highlight the levels of interest from different constituencies within the travel world. And one of the highest levels of interest was shown by Caribbean nationals who want to travel from one island to another and experience
Absolutely
differences in the island and all that brings. Now, let me ask you one more thing. Where are we in terms of, I know the governor has been lobbying for this. I know you have been lobbying for it. Where are we in terms of the new immigration bill, in terms of the provision of a different visa for Caribbean nationals to be able to enter into the USVI? Because that's going to be important to have the trade, to have the movement of people both ways. So where are we at in the Trump administration?
Great question. On the conservative side, you have about 3 million Caribbean diaspora on the eastern corridor of the United States. On the more optimistic side, 4 million. Okay. So legislation that was written by Congresswoman Christensen, supported by the governor, was to be able to write legislation to provide temporary work visa to be able to allow labor to tap the labor market throughout the Caribbean for those Caribbean folks from the Caribbean to be able to come from the Caribbean, work in the United States Virgin Islands, and obviously bridging the gap between those in the Caribbean diaspora as well in terms of how we create that, if you will, ecosystem where people can move freely throughout the region.
Okay, that's very good. Okay, so where are things right now with that? Is it part of the ongoing discussions?
Yeah, it's the bill. The bill is going through the passage. It's currently going through the passage of Congress. Whether it passes or not is obviously left to be seen. We know there are bipartisan support on the fact that we now need to be able to create a pipeline, if you will, of being able to tap into the manpower from the region in terms of bringing in folks to augment the labor force.
Excellent discussion in Connect Caribbean World, and you mentioned some key things there, and certainly with we have the CEO of the BHGA. I'm sure that he is itching to address some of the things that have been raised here, and we also did a study here as well in terms of the amount of Caribbean nationals that have migrated to the U.S. So there's really great possibility, but I really look forward to connecting the dots to see how Anthony and his guests really, dig down into this discussion and connect the dots with regards to the movement of people from the U.S. Obviously, we're talking about the UK as well, but we have the USVI here represented, but we really want to get that position of the USVI and the movement of Caribbean nationals living within the US. So I really look forward to the Connecting the Dots segment. Actually, that's coming up right after the break. So thank you for joining us. And remember, if you have any comments, questions, feel free to post them on the social platform that you're watching. And we'll be right back after this commercial break.
With the Bloomberg Small Business Report, I'm Tracy Jonke. We did not know yet in March just how sweeping President Trump's April 2nd tariffs announcement would be, but small business owners were already concerned. The National Federation of Independent Business is reporting a large drop, 16 percentage points, in the share of owners expecting business conditions to improve in the coming months. Down 11 points was the percentage of firms predicting inflation-adjusted sales growth. These job creators also intended to cut back on job creation, with the percentage of owners planning to add new positions falling to an almost one-year low. And the overall small business optimism index for March is down the most in nearly 3 years. Tariffs add another expense and more uncertainty to the challenges small business owners already face, namely high costs and hiring difficulties. The share of owners reporting job openings they can't fill rose to 40%. And that's the Bloomberg Small Business Report.
Welcome back. I'm Anthony Weeks, and I am pinch hitting for our colleagues, both John Clendenin, who's currently on location in Brazil, and Chris Principe, he's in Paris, France. I want to say welcome to the program. I'm really excited because one of our colleagues who is part of the visiting delegation from Loudoun County, Virginia, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia, better known as the DMV, DC wine country, but by way of Miami and Nebraska. Grant McGraw, welcome to Connect Caribbean.
Thank you.
You are certainly one of the team members. It is your first time here, and I know you were excited about what being here, what you're seeing, and what you're experiencing. And so I want to just say thank you and welcome for agreeing to be part of this 6-member delegation coming from the U.S. mainland to talk about what is it we're doing. So, as you know, and what you've seen, you've been here since Sunday.
Yes.
You've been here a few days.
Yes.
Okay, and I know driving on the left is freaking you out. Okay, I get that, but I really want to get your feedback on just really that impression that you're getting coming here for the first time, because you're here at St. Louis for the first time.
Yes.
You're from corn country or cornfield country, Nebraska, right, by way of Miami. And so I'm really curious to get your feedback on that. But let me just say, I'm excited because literally 3 years ago, a delegation from Loudoun County, Virginia, Visit Loudoun, came to the Virgin Islands, okay, part of a trade mission delegation. And then we took a U.S. Virgin Islands delegation, which comprised of the Economic Development Authority, the U.S. Department of Tourism, and Department of Agriculture. We took them to Loudoun County. And I dubbed this experience pairing where wine meets rum, because culturally speaking, where we say that Loudoun County is considered DC wine country, Virginia is famous for making wine. In the Caribbean is also famous for something, making rum. And so when I tagged what this theme was, I call it the pairing, where wine meets rum. And now here we are in 2025, 3 years later, we're now, after laying the foundation and putting in place the building block, we're now activating this bilateral national heritage collaboration.
Yes.
And the reason that's important, because earlier, if you paid attention to connecting to the Caribbean world, Connect the Reef world, is now we have an opportunity to connect that dots.
Yes.
Okay. And this bilateral national heritage designation, if you're familiar with the Sister City International model, there are 62 unique national heritage areas. We happen to be one of the unique designations. So we're going to form collaboration with other national heritage areas around the country to be able to tell the story not only of the Virgin Islands, but we are also the only national heritage area that's predominantly Caribbean American. So you have a strong Caribbean diaspora, literally having an opportunity to tell the history, the heritage, and the culture to the other national heritage area. And we're the only one. You're here. Talk to me, friend. How would you describe your experience?
Well, first, it's phenomenal on a lot of different fronts, especially historically. I've been in the United States my entire life. I did grow up in Omaha, Nebraska, right?
Corn country.
Corn, country. And because of my investment banking relationship with Cornhusker Capital, has led me here to work directly with you as we set the foundations of what we're putting together for the financial center, the financial marketplace for USDI, working with the U.S. mainland and the Caribbean and CARICOM. It's beautiful. It was came together right around Thanksgiving time. We had a conversation, and you're like, oh my God, because I've been doing a lot of branding, a lot of marketing. People see me on the podcast, other things.
And the television program.
Follow the brand, and it's been a hit. But you took me, 2-3 years ago, I was like, Grant, we love your program, we're going to syndicate. I said, great. I come here, and then I'm involved with what's going on with the St. Croix Heritage House. And I'm just blown away about, I get to see it in action. The implementation. A lot of people, you have idea, that's a great idea, but can it work? Can we get it laid? Can it live? Is it a living thing? And this week, I see the living reality of it.
Bravo.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? I see people coming from Loudoun County. I see people that own wineries.
Vineyards.
Actually,
Some of the whole prominent vineyards in the country. In the country, in Loudoun County,
Yeah.
are here with us on this delegation.
Yeah. So then I get to sit. We're sitting at a table. Well, I think it was Monday night, and we had the actual press.
The joint press conference.
Joint press
Event.
Let's call it an event. Great event.
Not a conference.
Not a conference.
Press event.
But to your point about the tagline, when wine meets rum, right? That's exactly what that was.
Right.
So you got Cruiser rum on the table, and you've got Bro wines on the table, and Blue Mountain,
Blue Mont Station Winery and Brewery.
long name. That great burger, by the way, just letting you know. Great event. They're all there together. So again, it's not, you have the vision, but then you have the clear implementation and representation of the vision in real life. And then we went over to the Cruiser Rum Distillery
I'm still
earlier.
drunk from just that fermentation of that, but the molasses and all that other stuff that goes outside.
I am not gonna lie, Anthony. I
I
rose
didn't drink
my
when I
hand.
smelled it.
I rose my hand. I said, "Look, do you need a taste test? Is that up for grabs?" So, but it was wonderful seeing that. And I'm gonna tell you another thing. I came here. I've seen three parts of the island. Frederickstead, which we are now. Christiansted. I'm like, wow. And that's the first place I went to, and I was blown away about the scenery, the look, the feel, the historical concepts. Everywhere we went, there's a story, a narrative. Everyone's telling me the story and the narrative, how things came to be. How the U.S., mainly because there was a Danish-controlled area, right?
That's a very excellent point. So there's the influence, the national and ethnic influence. The Virgin Islands flew under 7 flags. 7 countries literally controlled the Virgin Islands. So imagine taking all of that, whatever, and creating that unique Virgin Islands history and story.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible story.
And the major part of that story, I don't think the U.S. mainland people understand. They think when they go, even go to Puerto Rico, go to St. Thomas, and you go to Croix and St. John, they don't know this is a part of the U.S. It is a part of the U.S. They don't understand. They think, oh, we're just going to another island. Like, no,
Right.
This
And that's
is
for
your
them, right? Exactly. They're just looking to escape the reality on the U.S. mainland and just come here and get lost, right?
Right.
They're not paying attention to the real life environment of the day-to-day, struggles and challenges and, experiences of living in an island. It's just the idea, the romanticism of living in paradise is all they care about. They don't care about all the other stuff because we have to deal with that.
Yeah. But there's significant economic opportunity because of the legislation, the MOU that was passed with the governor. And I've been first, Anthony said it, what are you talking about? Then it just, when it hits home, the light bulb goes on, like new opportunity, great investments. Investment banking world, we work with multi-million-dollar operations, right? And we're looking at the entire community of the Caribbean region with the financial hub being in the U.S. Virgin Islands. And you have that, remember, connecting the dots, right?
Exactly.
Because we have relationships throughout the eastern seaboard of the United States. Quarters capital was centered right there. People might not know this, but one of the richest men in the world is centered right there in Omaha, Nebraska. And
Loudoun County, Virginia, the delegation that's here,
yeah,
they are the wealthiest county in the country.
Wow. Say that again.
When we talk about the people, the caliber of people that's part of the delegation that's here, they're coming. They're vineyard owners and winery owners.
Yeah.
But Loudoun County is one of the wealthiest counties in the country.
Great start.
Okay. So we're now telling that story, connecting that story for the Caribbean, right? By creating the Caribbean America single economy, economic zone, right? Economic bloc.
Yep.
And now you have the Case Capital Market, building the first U.S. capital market outside the U.S. mainland here in the Virgin Islands. But check this out. Caribbean people love their carnival. It's part of the tapestry.
Yeah.
It's part of the vibrancy of who we are as a people, right? We have carnivals in all the major cities throughout the United States, Caribana in Toronto, Canada, in Europe, all over the place, right? So what I'm pleased to announce and what came out of this trip, July 18th to the 20th, we're now introducing a new cultural event called the Caribbean Festival. Yes. And it ain't about the typical carnival partying in the street. No, we're going to take carnival to what it used to be. Okay? Yes. And we're going to tell the story wider and beyond the scope and the depth and the breadth. So we're taking the story to them.
Yes.
They're coming to us, they're not grasping anything. We're taking the story on the road. As a national heritage area, we're now going to tell the Caribbean story, the Caribbean experience, lifestyle, culture, you name it. And so I'm really pleased to announce that with this delegation, we announced at our joint press event that we will now, in the month of July, we're going to unveil the Caribbean Festival in the Washington, Maryland, Virginia area.
Wow. Alexander Hamilton comes home.
Yes.
Great stuff there. Anthony, just here sitting on the sidelines watching your conversation with your guest. I forgot his name, so if you can remind me, please, what his name is. And definitely from that conversation, I can see that there's going to be growth coming up from the U.S. Side, so that although the USVI is not a member of CARICOM, the work that you're doing there with the SETI and Caribbean American Single Economy, I can see that you're creating a pathway for more of our diaspora to experience, obviously, the USVI and having a connection here to the rest of the Caribbean. It's all about cultural development, and so that we can experience the side that we have not really been able to do because of the gap in regional travel. And so I really thank you for that conversation, and I hope to hear more from your guests in Connected Voices.
We couldn't plan it any better. Very, very timely.
Very, very timely. And we have each various nuances of each Caribbean island that we definitely want to experience. And I'm excited about my next guest coming up in the spotlight, but we'll introduce him right after this commercial break.
Thank you.
This is the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini. If you want to sell your home faster, try infusing it with nature-inspired design elements. Zillow says homes, for example, with soapstone countertops tend to sell for more. Looks like soapstone outsells quartz as the countertop material, helping sellers get about 3.5% more for their homes versus 2.6% for quartz. Homes with white oak floors and Venetian plaster walls apparently also sell for more. And buyers are willing to pay more for outdoor features, including outdoor showers, outdoor kitchens, and bluestone patios, as what's being called organic modernism goes mainstream. Also, a wet room is now more desirable than other spa-inspired bathroom features. What's a wet room, you might wonder? It's a fully waterproof type bathroom. And having one can help a home sell for an additional 3.3%, according to Zillow. And that's the Bloomberg Real Estate Report. I'm Denise Pellegrini.
Welcome back to Connect Caribbean Report, and I'm pleased to have as my guest in the spotlight the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association, also known as the BHTA, Mr. Ryan Ford. With over 15 years of experience in the tourism industry, his career spans multiple countries and includes work with both international and local hotel brands, as well as eco-adventure attractions. His roles have covered every phase from development and opening to brand transitioning, reflecting his cultural adaptability and democratic leadership style. His experience collaborating with owners, investors, regional directors, general managers, and team members keeps him attuned to the industry trends. In his current position, Ryan leads the growth and direction of team members and tourism businesses in Barbados, while identifying new development opportunities for property owners. He holds a master's degree in tourism and hospitality management from EADA Business School in Barcelona and a bachelor's degree with honors in international business from the Barcelona Business School with a minor in tourism management. Welcome to the program, Ryan Ford. So great to have you joining us.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. It's a pleasure to be here with you and all the rest on the show today.
Welcome. Now, you've heard the conversations in Connect Caribbean World, and they're in connecting the dots. So I want to jump straight into my leading question because I want to set the foundation as it relates to the tourism's role in shaping Caribbean identity and unity and reaching out to diaspora and that other element of the tourism opportunities. So, from your vantage point, how do you see the tourism sector positioning itself then to drive that cultural connection that we've been talking about within the Caribbean? And how do you see increased inter-island travel among Caribbean nations really enhancing this regional unity that we've been talking about? And where is this aspect of regional tourism fall on the priority list for enhancing tourism in the Caribbean?
Okay, thank you. Well, first, tourism plays a huge role because the main thing that we always like to advocate to other people interested in coming to our destinations is that our people is the most important part about our tourism. We could build lovely hotels, we could have attractions and restaurants, but that's just a representation. But if you want the day-to-day heartbeat of our industry, is meeting the people. People, you fall in love with them. So ideally, tourism is extremely important from all aspects when we speak towards interregional travel and connectivity. You don't go to another island looking for something that you just left somewhere else. It's the same thing in Europe. I don't go to Spain looking for Italy. I go to Barbados not looking for Grenada. And it continues when persons want to get those different experiences and whatnot. Obviously, being able to fly or to connect via boat is key for us because we're small islands. Really and truly, the Caribbean should just be one continent. That's really what it is.
Exactly.
The problem is that we have water that separates us, which means we have to pick up and actually fly or go on boat rather than just drive to a pole and you go through that toll booth and then you continue. So that's the key in regards to that. And the second question you mentioned was?
Yeah, this is in relation to what aspect of regional tourism fall on for enhancing tourism. What's the priority there for regional tourism and enhancing tourism in the Caribbean as it relates to this cultural aspect?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important. I mean, if you go and you look at the educational side, you're being able to educate all of our peers in the different islands as well as externally what is true about the Caribbean on each island. Then you also go into the schools, you go into agriculture, produce, being able to share. Dominican Republic, for example, is a big mover of bananas. Every time a storm comes, you have to be worried whether or not the production is going to increase or decrease. We don't know, but they are able to facilitate us. Also, as you see the tariffs that are coming around with the geopolitical tensions and all those changes, we need to acknowledge that in the Caribbean, we can also do our own business from each island to each island. And that is extremely key when we talk about a cultural side, because culture, everyone thinks is only just the art. But our culture is really and truly what we have to offer to everyone else and be able to work together. Now, on that art side, we're the most vibrant culture in the entire world, the Caribbean. We get it straight out from the continent of Africa. And it goes back to my initial point. What our people have to say, what our people have to do and offer is what really and truly drives that interregional travel, whether it's someone from one Caribbean island going to another, or if it is someone from outside the Caribbean looking to see all of our islands and experience the best of what the world has to offer.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you there. You mentioned about, the younger generation and in terms of cooperation and impact, focusing on industry cooperation and the generation impact. As the head of the BHTA, how can the hotel and tourism associations across the region collaborate then to promote more intra-Caribbean travel, especially among younger generations who may not have experienced much cross-cultural exposure within the region, and definitely within the diaspora who they're born in the U.S., but their parents and grandparents are from the Caribbean, and they don't have a framework as it relates to the cultural experiences that their parents and grandparents have experienced. So, in your vantage point, your 360 vantage point there, what can the Hotel and Tourism Association do to enhance education among the younger generations in diaspora and certainly within the Caribbean, who really don't know much about what's happening in the other islands?
So, I mean, there are three ways. One, our umbrella body, which is the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, they lobby on behalf of all of our islands. And they have just actually opened up for 2 seats on their board to actually have a young leaders representative on the board, to talk about things that are interesting for young investors or young operational individuals working in the trade. And then we also have the opportunity to promote all of our festivals, whether it might be food and rum, or if it is that we're talking about Dominica Creole Fest. We have all of these things, as well as every island has their own carnival or festival in itself.
You're into my next question.
Here in Barbados,
So,
we
yes.
have crop over. We have crop over. And there are a lot of also families that own hotels, restaurants, attractions. And you know what happens there? They pass on to their sons and their daughters and whatnot. But getting those young investors involved to understand what the true ins and outs of the industry are is extremely key, because they're going to be the leaders for the next 40 years. But they're coming from a different viewpoint. Even here at the association, we have a lot of young team members here in the secretariat mixing with the more experienced ones. I myself and my operations manager, we're in our mid-30s, and we're seeing how to run a secretariat from a different viewpoint while still learning from the ones that were there from before us. We might challenge their norms, but we're also taking in what they've given us, and then we're using it to kind of energize the secretariat and energize our members so that they can speak from a younger perspective, even if they themselves may not be super young.
Yeah. Well, since you've answered the first half of my second question, I want to ask you, then the DMOs within the Caribbean, are they really incorporating this as a significant means of increasing the movement of people within the Caribbean? Because we talk about festivals, the traditions, successfully attracting visitors from neighboring islands, to help foster that greater regional appreciation. But are the DMOs within the Caribbean really incorporating this as a significant strong point for increasing the movement of people and families, within the Caribbean?
Yeah, we see that across the DMOs, across the region. They're definitely looking at it. They're finding out ways how to use more of AI. They're using more influencer marketing, because you can't just sell me on, for example, what a travel agent may have in a magazine anymore. Persons want to see what is the visual representation of that experience. And these are, as you know, from our generations, we're the first persons to get into social media and smartphones and being quick to data and using Chat GPT. So the DMOs are definitely using it. I know from our tourism board here in Barbados, they are very active in getting the younger marketing individuals involved in their marketing escapades, as well as in the individual markets that they might be in, whether that's Canada, US, LATAM, etc. And they're also setting up kind of diaspora meetings with young Barbadians in these actual markets. So that way you're being able to connect with them and not just tell them tourism is not just a hotel and an airline and a cruise ship. It's not just housekeeping and food and beverage. There's so many other areas that you can either work in or invest in and benefit from tourism.
There are some other questions that I'm going to raise in Connected Voices, but I have 2 quick questions as my segment begins to wrap up. The policy shift then, or incentives, what would you like to see implemented to make inter-island travel more accessible and appealing, not just to international tourists, but to the Caribbean citizens?
Obviously, the port of entry, you're always going to say about taxes, right? Obviously, if we have lower taxes in regards to the travel, then you're also going to see more people come. Obviously, on the government side, they may say, okay, well, we're reducing so much of the taxes, which they've done here for Caribbean travel. If you reduce that so much, then where are they going to make money? Well, obviously, if people come here, they're going to spend money per day. So we need to kind of get people coming to the island to spend more. But if it's more expensive to come, they're not going to come. That's number one. And then number two, they're not going to spend because they're not here.
Okay. Excellent point. Well, I want to get your visionary outlook as I close out this segment, and I'll bring you back in the next segment. But in terms of the culture exchange through tourism, how do you see it evolving? What's your vision? How do you see it evolving in the next decade? And what role can organizations like the BHTA play in shaping the future?
To me, I think we are right now in a transition of the decade of change. I've been saying that for over a year now. Ideally, when we are building out what our infrastructure and our marketing and our programs are, we need to connect with all of our sectors. So if you're looking at historical type of tourism, then we don't need to just build one museum, but you need to build a school that educates people as the reason why the museum is there. If you're going towards sports tourism, you need to be building out facilities that cater to sports while you're also marketing about sports, but also you have infrastructure from hotels and villas, etc., that cater towards sports as well as the MICE segment. So these are the kind of areas that I'm thinking that we need to go towards. From the BHTA perspective, we're a lobbying organization. So obviously we meet with our members, we hear from them, we go and lobby on their behalf as to the areas that we think can increase not just their spend, but also increase what their offering is, whether that's food and beverage concessions or construction concessions, as the cost of construction has gone up significantly and it has become a challenge, or is it that we're lobbying for the entrance into the island to become more affordable so then we can expose people to what we're doing here and get them to spend more?
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ranford. He is the CEO of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association. I want you to stick around for Connecting Voices because I really want to get interplay between what's happening in the USVI, how they're working to increase movement of people from the US to the Caribbean. I want to get your take in that conversation, some of the things that were mentioned in that segment. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break with Connected Voices.
Thank you.
Reimagine a world where the Caribbean is seamlessly connected, where our people, our cultures, and our economies move freely across the islands. This is Connect Caribbean, more than a ferry service. It's the heartbeat of a new era, an era where economic opportunities expand, where trade flows freely across our seas, and cultural exchange flourishes. We are linking businesses, empowering communities, and reigniting the hope for a truly integrated Caribbean. Together, we're shaping a brighter, more unified future for the Caribbean. Connect Caribbean, connecting our islands, our people, our future. Welcome back to Connect Caribbean Report. And we have joining us again is the CEO of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association. And we have Ambassador Dr. Arvin Thomas, the Chairman and CEO of Connect Caribbean. Parent company is Leon Group. So we've had a really great discussion talking about the potential of the USVI bringing from the DMV area, the diaspora. And I wanted to get Mr. Forrest's take on what possibilities he sees coming out of the USVI and what they're trying to achieve. And if you want a refresher, Ambassador Thomas can definitely give you a refresher on what's happening there and what they're trying to build. But in terms of connecting the USVI, as it is not part of the CARICOM, but an associate member, what potential do you see there, Ryan, happening with regards to our Caribbean brothers, even though they're Americans, our Caribbean brothers in the USVI? What synergies do you see happening there?
Even though you may not be part of CARICOM, you fall right in the Caribbean belt.
Yes.
So you're still one of us. We even have persons like Suriname and Guyana who are in South America, but we consider them to be very much Caribbean as well. So there's definitely opportunity for trade as well as transit between nations. So I welcome any opportunity for conversation, Ambassador Thomas, in regards to that.
Absolutely. And Dr. Thomas, with the other of the ferry service and the MOU that was recently signed with the governor of the USVI, creating opportunities for the movement of people, and definitely addressing the cultural divide in, in terms of the ability that we are seeking to, achieve in moving people across the Caribbean. How um, would you, what would you say, to Mr. Ford in terms of supporting the initiatives that he mentioned earlier in terms of moving people, connecting the youth, cultural, and so forth? What would you say to him to expect from Connect Caribbean? You can turn your mic on.
I believe that Connect Caribbean is going to be a catalyst. I believe that we are going to be an instrument by which very well crafted and thought out policies can really start to be implemented, and areas where change needs to happen are going to be highlighted. I when you look at how transformation happens, you there is a there's so much you can do in terms of thinking conceptually, but when you finally actually get into the practice of it and you start moving people and you hit the barriers, you hit the issues, then some of the things that you thought conceptually now have to change, you have to modify them. So I am under no illusion. I believe that there's certain things that we're going to be able to execute right now, but I believe as we start, we're going to certainly meet some obstacles, and that's why relationships with the BHTA and also now the CTO are going to be very, very, very important as we navigate these challenges. We have enough buy-in. I mean, there is enough enthusiasm for us to start, but we will encounter issues along the way that we need to work together to solve.
Yeah, and Ryan, in terms of the local, the hotel stops and so forth, moving people, we talk about the high season and the low season. What are you hoping in regards to the addition to Connect Caribbean, the transportation, maritime transportation, to increase travel, heads and beds, that type of thing? What are you expecting, and what are you hoping in this regard? Because again, you have the diaspora. There's so many associations, Caribbean associations. There's the Guyana Association, Atlanta. There are many associations in the U.S. And I think that this could be, and you can tell me, I'm not a tourism expert, but I mean, if you're able to move Caribbean nationals more thoroughly across the Caribbean, utilizing maritime transportation, what are you hearing from your members in regards to the implementation of the Connect Caribbean?
Thank you. Obviously, with the ferry service being talked about, everyone is anxious to see how it actually rolls out. So I know it's kind of a wait and see process, and ambassadors related to that as well, to see what challenges they may face, like anything else. But as Caribbean people, we always want change, but then we're resistant and hesitant until it happens, and then everybody runs and jumps on board. So I know that we're anxious with that. Obviously, from a CHTA perspective, they are the ones that connect all of us in the Caribbean from the Hotel and Tourism Association. I know, obviously, with our members, we do a lot of trade. And then in the summer, you will see individual islands will have, like let's say St. Lucia, they have a very good July versus another island who may not. Some other island might have a very strong May and we may not. Our weakest months are June and September. So for us, if we're able to start catering to more of the Caribbean as well as connecting to some of Latin America and whatnot, because it's so close, we will be able to get individuals coming into the island, being able to leave the same time like it's a cruise ship, or the next day, or come to a short weekend period. And I think that is really what we need to look at, and making sure that the cost to do such is still less than an airplane, because you're going to spend a little bit more time on the boat. But security in an airport, if you're going through Miami, for example, or New York, everyone on this call and who's watching knows you're spending a good amount of time in that airport going through security to then get on the plane. So for us, it's really and truly the access, the cost, as well as what kind of trade can we really do between the islands, whether that is increase of agriculture, produce, or manufacturing, but also getting Caribbean individuals in between to enjoy the experience. And the last point too, a lot of us have carriers coming in from Europe, maybe one per island or whatever the case might be, and also from England. And one thing that they wish they could do that we do in reverse, we go to Europe and England and we go and see multiple cities. They want to be able to come into the Caribbean and see multiple islands for a very marginal cost.
Yeah, and you'd be happy to know, and I want to get Dr. Thomas to begin this before we wrap up. You're happy to know that the interest is very high for persons will send messages saying, I'm coming into Barbados, but I want to go to St. Lucia, I want to Grenada, and go to Grenada. When are you starting? So definitely the need is there, the interest is there, is just for us now to bring, all of this together. But you mentioned some things I'm sure that Dr. Thomas will want to speak to. And so let me just hand it back over to Dr. Thomas.
Thank you, Jennifer. Okay, one of the things that we have been able to achieve as we work towards our launch date is that we have been able to begin to bring together the various ferry operators across the region. And not only do we now have Connect Caribbean, but we have the Connect Caribbean Consortium. And we're going to be using one reservation system, very similar to the One World Alliance. And so we have announced it on this particular program with ferry companies operating out of the USVI and also the BVI. And we intend to extend that across the region, whereby an individual will be able to book not only with our own ferries, but with the ferries of our other partners. And we have settled on that reservation system. And I believe that with the way that we are working, because it's very clear amongst the ferry operators that this needs to happen and we need to work together. Okay, so it's really very clear amongst us, and we want to help them with what we're doing, and they want to help us, and so it would be good for you to know that's happening. So when we launch, not only will there be an interconnected service in the two main routes that we're starting with, but a lot of the other ferry services in the region will be connected to us. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that thorough update, Dr. Thomas. Any last words from you, Mr. Ford?
I just want to say good luck, obviously, on the venture, because it's something that the Caribbean has really been crying out for a long time. And I think, Ambassador Thomas, you just touched on something that, has always been a challenge in the Caribbean, which is partnering and making sure it flourishes. But I'm glad to see that even before it takes speed, you guys have already had the conversation of working together and connecting more of the Caribbean, because as big as one island looks to another on a map, and one may look smaller, really and truly when we're put together, we're still not a large country.
That's right.
So if we're able to connect the dots together, and that's what we really are on the maps, is dots. We're very strong and powerful together. And then we can look at also our brothers and sisters over in Latin America, or of course, when people are looking for direct flights over from Africa, Europe, and other places. So thank you for that.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Dr. Andre Thomas, Chairman and CEO of Connect Caribbean, parent company of Beyond Group Inc. And thank you very much, Mr. Ryan Ford, for joining us here at Connect Caribbean Report.
Welcome to our TV network, your ultimate destination for all things exciting and essential. From mouth-watering food to the latest in fashion, health, education, music, movies, and news, plus thrilling sports and breathtaking travel, our TV network brings it all to you. Tune in today and experience the best of every world, all in one place, rtv.network.